Coming up, we got a guy who deals with family. His name is Chris Whalen. He heads up Foxhole Father. Like I was saying, we're talking about fatherhood right now. He specializes in family financial matters. Now get that, family financial matters, that's big-time stuff here. Every family needs to, be right on top of their financial matters because we know that one of the big strains on families these days, and maybe throughout time immemorial, has been, oh boy, how do we make ends meet here? And, when we're trying to make ends meet, when we're struggling, it's not good on that love energy that I was talking about earlier. So Chris is a proponent of family financial matters in their interrelationships because it helps their final love relationship as much as anything else. And he works with collaborative legal teams towards peaceful divorce resolutions too. Now, that is what I was intimating too. Sometimes it gets so bad that people will just break up, even if the love is still there. Get it? Two people can love each other and decide, well, we're just not working it right as far as our lifestyle arrangement. So they develop, hopefully, a peaceful divorce. Whoa. Now, we're going to be talking about that. And his volunteer work includes mentoring fathers, prison re-entry programs. We'll, put some emphasis on that, too. In our 2015 People of Distinction Humanitarian Awards, we have somebody who also deals with the prison system very directly. Well, prison system, the system of law and order. We have a retired police captain out in the San Diego area, and he's one of our unsung heroes because he deals with police PTS. He deals with a lot of the stress issues going on with police officers, post-traumatic stress disorder. So the prison system is integral to what I talk about as well, prison reentry programs. We'll talk about mentoring at-risk youth. Whoa. Now, at-risk youth are all over the place, and we have to mentor them in order to have a better society. So Chris is right at the vanguard of all of that stuff. And if you want to know more, run to this website, foxholefather.com. That's www.foxholefather.com. Welcome, Chris, to People of Distinction with Al Cole. It's indeed a pleasure to have you on today. How are you, Chris?
Thank you, Al. I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and we had a great pre-interview chat, talked it up about Foxhole Father and all of the great work that you're doing, and I'll let you express it throughout the show. Before we even start talking about Foxhole Father, let's talk about your background a little bit. Introduce yourself to my listening audience. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, a little bit about your roots, and some of the things in your upbringing that might have, formulated your directions that you now take professionally. Start up a couple of minutes. Tell us a little bit about Chris and his roots. Tell us that, Chris.
Well, I was raised in Queens, New York. I'm one of 6 children. And we eventually moved to New Jersey. I had a very close family. My mother's very spiritual. I would say that my mother is probably my best friend and my greatest influence in many areas of my life, including in business. I've always been, since I'm a young teenager, very entrepreneurial. Some people are into cars, some into sports. When I learned what an entrepreneur was, it's just something I just grabbed a hold on to, and I still do it today. As you know, I run a CPA practice here in New Jersey and deal with clients nationally and internationally. And I'm basically working with business owners and families every day to structure, really go forward planning for the future, as opposed to just having people who are working day to day, check to check. Part of my philosophy is to really use a business and your family financial plan to get you to certain places and have a really detailed path to get to the top of that mountain, if you will.
I love what you're talking about. It's so very important to our world to keep the family intact. You're doing it with something that you call Foxhole Father. Why Foxhole Father? What does that import, Chris?
Well, in 1997, unfortunately, I went through a pretty sudden divorce from my children's mother. And I was thrust into a situation where at least 50% of the time I was going to be physically responsible for them as well as financially responsible. And in my upbringing, I was raised in a very Irish Catholic sort of environment where, boys did boy things outside, and they were shoveling snow and painting a house. And I had never, before my daughter was born, I never had held a baby or done anything related to infants. So I was really, even when I was married, I was heavily participative, but I really followed my ex-wife's lead, feeling that was sort of my position. Now, suddenly in 1997, I was thrust into a situation where I term it a foxhole, because that's what it felt like. I was suddenly immersed in this very, very frightening world of having to take care of these three children and just feeling as if I had to insulate them and really feeling under the gun, as if, the world was coming in around me. It was one of the worst emotional times I ever went through. And I've come to find over the years that many fathers feel that way, especially single fathers, but even couple fathers, men who are married, still can feel insecure. They lack confidence. They feel it's not 100% their role. And my book, Foxhole Father, is really meant to give them the confidence from a perspective of someone that really understands what you can do and how to use your masculine sense to be a very effective father. So that's where the foxhole term comes from in my book.
Yeah, now we understand. I'm going to make an alcove reflection here to my people. Hey, I'm talking to you, my listening audience, right now. What Chris is talking about is communication, or lack of it, in our society. I'm going to clarify that, and I think Chris is going to be on board. All right, now, see, mothers and fathers are both necessary to create a baby. All right, so let's start out with Birds and Bees 101 right now. We know that. After that baby is created, it has been designated, not by nature, but by our society, that, well, the mother's going to stay home and rear the child, and the father's going to go off happily to work and bring home the bacon. Well, who said that has to be a godly decree, people? Nobody. And in fact, it's not even natural. I'm going to say something that might even be revolutionary. When two people create that baby, the DNA is within that baby of both parties. What that means is that energy is in there too. Inherent energy, latent energy that can be sparked by either parent at any time. That father can play a quote-unquote motherly role and still be masculine. We're talking about societal, the way that we impose society's answers to questions here, and designations and definitions. These things can be altered at any time and need to be altered quite a bit of the time, where a father says to himself, hey, this is my baby, and this is wonderful, and I take pride in that baby, and I want to know what's going on. I want to talk to that baby periodically. I want to commune with that baby. I want to touch that baby. I want to see me in that baby. I also want to see the woman who I love in that baby, the mother. And when that father starts to commune with that individual that he has helped to create, he's communing with himself at that particular point as well. He's communing with his own identity, and he's seeing that identity in his baby, and he's communing with the identity of another loved one, that mother, his wife. And he's saying, I love you, my baby, because you're a part of me and you're a part of the woman who I love too. And that father can be just as involved in the upbringing of that child as that mother is. We have to get on to this. Stop all of this stuff with going by societal definitions and think of some natural definitions of who you are as a father. Once you start doing that, guess what? The big thing that you will solve are communication gaps. You will be able to freely communicate because you're not limited to the role that I'm a media person coming from CBS Radio. Now, the media pigeonholes fathers all the time. Fathers are supposed to be doing this, doing that. Hey, stop all that jive, people. Fathers are human beings. Babies are human beings. Mothers are human beings, and we all have that beautiful love energy working through us. Human energy. We have more in common than we have in differences. Am I on the right track there, Chris?
100%. 100%, Al.
There we go. So going from that, let's get into some of the things that develop when we are outside of that groove. And you're talking about family financial matters, sometimes even stretching the limitation of that family to divorce. Hey, now, how does it ever get to that point? We know that financial matters mean a lot in our world. Do financial matters break up families more than any other single factor, Chris?
Yeah, I would say it's close to 90% that I can see, but it comes down to your excellent point. It's really a communication issue, most of this. So I have many clients that I work with a lot of the collaborative law, as we mentioned. You have parents who aren't fully involved in all aspects of the family, and that grows a distance and sometimes a paranoia and resentment. So we talk about what if only one parent is doing most of the child rearing? What if one parent is handling the finances? That's a very bad situation. So part of my seminars and work with families is to try to integrate and educate everyone to be a participant so we don't have this buildup of resentment and problems that we see, especially in the financial world and the financial part of families, especially with the vets coming home, for example, and dealing with veterans. A quick aside, you have a veteran who's been away for 18 months, and suddenly they're coming back into a household where they've had really no input into the financial world or the child rearing a lot. So we need to reintegrate them into all these aspects in a methodical way to make sure that there isn't this explosion of resentment and paranoia. But that happens every day. I deal with families every day where financial issues are simmering underneath other issues. And if we can take care of the financial issues and get a trust and a camaraderie and a partnership with those, it really helps to alleviate a lot of other problems that seems to stem from those.
Whoa. Chris, you're saying a mouthful there. I agree with what you're talking about, and I know my listening audience agrees too. So I want to home in and clarify here something that you said that is extremely important, and I don't want it to go over the listeners, the heads of my listeners right now. You said that in most families, the financial matters are really handled more by one spouse than another. Now, that's bad right there. Now we have some more miscommunication that can possibly happen when the one that's out of the loop says, well, how come this is happening? Why is that happening? And then the one who's in the loop, the spouse that's in the loop, has to explain, re-explain. They get tired of that, and that can cause arguments right there. One question that comes to mind here is typically, who is that spouse in the family, in our American families, who is often handling the financial matters? Is it the husband or the wife usually?
Well, it's interesting. If you have a dynamic where both people are working, then it really could be either or. It really is not gender based. So, if what happens though, even with both parties working, the dynamic that happens that often is crippling is when you have someone who's not involved with the finances, is getting a certain amount of money, say, deposited into a family account to use for bills. That other parent sometimes starts to feel subordinate, almost as if they're getting an allowance. And then the person who's providing the money can sometimes feel superior, even subconsciously. And so that's where I work with couples all the time on that one issue. They don't even know that it's simmering there, right? Because if I start giving you money to pay your bills, well, suddenly you're my daughter, you're not my wife, right?
Yeah.
I'm giving you, so that is sometimes the very beginning of a problem that leads to other resentments and other inferiority complexes and superiority complexes that we need to work on, that I work with couples every day, especially business owners. You have an extra added problem when it's not just a wage earner, but let's say you have a business owner, and that's a whole world that their spouse doesn't understand. It's very rare that an entrepreneur like me, for example, can marry someone who understands that world. So you have another disconnect where we have someone providing funds from the business, and yet they can't even talk to their spouse about their world and have them understand it. So this is honestly part of my coaching that I do on a daily basis to try to get people to understand what's really happening underlying the finances here. How can we get everyone involved and get rid of this subconscious emotional battle that's going on? And really, no one has bad intentions. It's just the way people set up their finances causes an instinctive kind of territoriality, if you will. And it's very, very significant. And I see it. I work with it every day. So I think he'll understand appreciate the importance of what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. Everybody does. Hey, people, if you appreciate that importance, and I know you do, I want you to run to this website and prove it. Go to foxholefather.com. That's www.foxholefather.com, and hey, get in touch with Chris, and he can help out your family with his great financial assistance and expertise. And if you're going through any sort of financial situation that is, just straight out important right now, but maybe even crucial to your marriage and to your bringing up your children, you definitely want to contact Chris Whalen, foxholefather.com. All right, so we've set up some great guidelines right now for our listeners. They know what you're talking about. They know that you're talking about it from a personal point of view. When you find yourself a foxhole father, you went through that divorce, and it was greatly induced by financial matters. And now you help people to overcome their financial matters before the divorce court comes into it. Let me ask you something, Chris. How successful are you? Two people come to you and they say, well, we're having some problems here. You say the mother and father, but integrally right now, they're the husband and the wife. And they talk about the financial matters. Give us a percentage here, a ballpark percentage, so that my listeners can understand, and other situations that go into this. Out of those people who come to you who are not divorced yet, what percentage do you really help out realistically before it gets into divorce proceedings?
Well, if the major issues are financial, I usually can help 90% of the time to get them. It's an education issue. It's very interesting. So people don't understand. If you needed a root canal, of course you need to go to an orthodontist or a dentist. But in this case, family budgeting, family financial planning, these are all things that no one's taught. It's not simply checkbook work. So this is something that you have a couple who are struggling financially, yet they don't have all the tools or the education to understand what to do with their money, how to budget. No one teaches you that. So when I can give them, and I workshop this with families, we sit down and we talk about how to budget, how to plan, how to communicate together, what kind of systems to set up. Once I can give people direction, we go back and we analyze, say, 6 months worth of their financial data. We plug that into systems. We work together. We workshop it all together, and we get them to the point where they're coached through what they need to be doing on a monthly basis. And just what that does, remember that although they're financially stressed, people react emotionally to a lack of control. Mm-hmm. So they're at work, they're in control. You have a mother or father at home, they're in control with the children. Yes. This area leads to such insecurity, and the lack of control can make people emotionally so upset. So what I try to do is instill a sense, although, yes, we have a problem, but we can wrap our heads around it and come up with a real plan to control that tornado of a problem. And once we do that, you should see instantly their shoulders relax, their voices calm down, they're much nicer to each other, and they start to be partners again instead of adversaries in this maelstrom that they feel they can't control.
Yeah. We're going to go into this in a little bit of detail, too, because I know my listeners, and I know what they're thinking right now. They're saying, whoa, this guy has a lot of answers. They're also asking certain questions because you're intimating things all of the time, Chris, that one of the spouses is out of the loop, more out of the loop with financial matters than the others. You even said that in many cases it can seem like like a husband is just delegating certain sort of authority over financial matters to his daughter. You even said that. Right. Meaning, his actual wife. But, it's just, hey, look, honey, take care of this. I'm the one who's bringing in the money. Don't worry, baby. I'm going to bring, all I ask of you is just to go to the bank periodically and this and that. Make sure that there are no late payments. So please do this, daughter. Now, that's resentful stuff to a wife, especially an intelligent wife, especially a great mother. And you're intimating this all over the place. So I want to really get specific. Two people come to you, and the guy says, hey, Chris, I'm out there, man, I'm out there 60 hours a week in that grind, sometimes even 70. And, I'm making a good living here. And I got a great wife, and sometimes we disagree about the money matters. We don't want to lose our marriage because of that. We love each other. And the wife is chiming in, same thing. And then you're getting the feeling that, these two people really want to stay together. The money thing we can overcome. You're also getting the vibe that the wife feel a little bit resentful because, she's home with the kids, and sometimes she feels underappreciated. Sometimes maybe she wants to start her own business. And maybe she does have her, something that she does professionally. And maybe she's even thinking to herself, I want to have control over my money, too. This is my husband who's going to work, delegating some of the money to me. I'm going to work, too. And I don't want to bother him about, when I want to buy a dress or two or whatever. And you're getting it loud and clear. Now, I'm sure that this is not atypical. I would think that it is more or less typical in these relationships. And another added factor here to make it very specific, there are more women filing for divorces than men these days. Women sometimes say, enough is enough. And the guys are, they're left with egg in their face and they say, what do you mean, honey? I'm a great provider. I've been, enough is enough. You're not communicating right with me and the kids. You see this all the time. So let's take it 1, 2, 3, ABC, nuts and bolts here, Chris. What do you do actually in a situation like that, which I think is pretty typical in our current American society?
In the first meeting, when the first things I want to go over with them are the dynamics of how do dynamics change when one spouse, let's say it's the wife, is going to stay home and not be a wage earner any longer, and one spouse will be outside the house still earning wages and supporting everybody. So that is an extreme change for the family dynamic and personal dynamics, and I spend the first hour trying to explain that everyone would think that this is a good situation. A mom, she wants to be a mom, she wants to be home. That's fantastic. A man wants to be out taking care of the family. He feels good. That is a great success for him too. So the first feelings that do linger that this is success for both parties. They're both getting to live their dream and support each other. But you have to remember some of the emotional dynamics that go on. So first of all, when you're a mother at home, the times that you get affirmation that you're doing a good job are very few and far between. It's very emotional, very physically laborious, and there aren't a lot of times where you get an attaboy that, you're doing a great job. Right, so, but when you're a man working out of the house, let's say, you're getting constant affirmation that you're doing a good job.
With the employer.
So, right, exactly. So first I backtrack to this couple that might now be 4 or 5 years into this marital situation that has changed with one wage earner, and I try to explain to them what's really happening, because when a woman at home has trouble or starts to have some kind of issues, of course a man can start feeling unappreciated, and his feelings can come out as if he's feeling hurt. And so, but really, his wife could really just has lost a lot of her feelings of worth and affirmation.
Well, absolutely. And now, if it doesn't work, you said 90% of the cases it does, but in that 10% case, now it goes into the second thing that you do, working with collaborative legal teams towards peaceful divorce resolutions.
Exactly.
Now, two people come to you and they say, hey, look, it's just not working here. Whether the love is there or not, we just can't live together anymore. How do you bring two people together for the good of the children, for the good of both the mother and the father here in peaceful divorce resolutions?
Well, the first thing I do is dispel the feelings that, or the thoughts or the dogma that, this is going to be a simple mediator and, it's not going to be professional. Absolutely not. In collaborative law, what we try to do is it's a team approach where each party does have their own attorney involved, but we want to, instead of giving a lot of money to the lawyers, we want to work together for everyone's best interest, and you have your own legal representation, but we try to get to the point where we get this done without having to go to trial, without dragging things out. It's not adversarial. Your rights are protected, but you also bring in someone like me. You bring a CPA in who's an independent party instead of hiring two to work for everyone on the financial issues, valuing the business, valuing assets, helping calculate child support and alimony. So this is something to at least look into. Even when there's adversarial divorce situations, I urge them, listen, let's at least look at the options here. So if this is to possibly save the family money in the long run. I urge everyone listening to really look into collaborative law and collaborative divorce as an option before you sign with any attorney in the usual traditional adversarial mode.
There we go. And the best way to look into it is go to foxholefather.com and check out all the great work that Chris Whalen is doing. Chris is our special guest here on People of Distinction with Al Cole. He heads up Foxhole Father, and I know you're loving what he's talking about right now. And if you're in the position where you can be helped by Chris, again, one more time, foxholefather.com is the place to go. We have some minutes left in the show, Chris, and I want to get to a couple of very important topics that you deal with here. Prison reentry programs and mentoring at-risk youth. We talked about ways that you mentor fathers as well in terms of how you're mentoring that family in general in their financial matters. Now, guys, and it's mostly guys who are locked up, and we know that these days, I got to say it, I'm an African-American man. I just got to say it. So many of the people who are behind prison bars are African-Americans these days, and then Hispanics as well. And poor people in general, people who do not have the funds to hire that great lawyer and get out of things. Prison reentry programs, well, I mean, we're talking now about people who didn't have funds to begin with and then don't have funds as a prisoner, and how are they going to manage their affairs anyway? Talk a little bit about that. What does that mean, prisoner and reentry programs here that you manage up for people, Chris?
Well, we have people, let's say they have a felony, which of course is a very interesting word, because then if you have a felony, people might know you need to usually check the box on an application that you have a felony. But, of course, felony is like saying there's weather outside. That there's many different types of felonies, and that's one of the main things I discuss with these people who are formerly prisoners. You have to remember, these are great men and women. They might have been 16 years old. They might have sold drugs just to pay for their grandmother's prescriptions. These are not, 99% of people in prison are not hardened criminals. They're people that didn't really have a way to make money in order to support themselves. So we have to remember that. It's really an education issue in the inner city, which is another whole 3 hours I could talk about. But what these people come out of prison wanting to do better, wanting to get a job, and they can't go to monitor.com. They can't readily walk into a retail store because they know there's going to be a criminal background check. And so what I've done over the years is get involved in many different organizations where I set up a specific 8 to 10 week program where we have different types of mentoring and training. I usually handle the business and technology and office-related certifications on a weekly basis for at least a half a day a week. So what we want to do is get them to the point where we get them acclimated to be able to type, how to work in an office environment, how to do interview skills, something they've never gotten before. And then what I do is I take it to the next step is I basically give a certified kind of resume from me that they've come out of my program. So when they do go into a retail store, there is this preamble, there is this letter from me explaining exactly who this candidate is, what their history was, what was their exact felony, what did they do really, and at least it gives them more of an entree, and they have a reference from me, so it lets them get the conversation started where these business owners could be much more comfortable that this person has some credentials which they've never had before. That's one area. Plus there's at-risk youth. So I've done a lot of mentoring and almost like in a big brother type of way of wanting to get to the children of these men and women that are in prison that need help. They need guidance. They need on a weekly basis to meet with me. I'll meet with groups and we'll talk about things they need to talk about they really can't talk to their father about. So I've done that for 20 years. So, and this is just and just amazing things happening. And the biggest misnomer that I think is people think of inner city youth and they think, oh, they're gaming the system for entitlements, and that's absolutely not true. And it's just like I teach them. When I come into a classroom with 45 African-American 22-year-olds, I'm the only Caucasian guy in the room. And so I need to quickly dispel to them, no, not all white people are racist. It's a very, very small percentage, just as you're not gaming the system. So that's the biggest part of this is communication.
Yeah.
And
how effective is your work in that area? As you just said, most of the people that you work with are people of color, African Americans and Hispanics, and like you just said, you're one of the few white guys in the room. So
right.
How effective is this really in our society? I'm not really even asking how effective is your work. Your work could be highly effective, and still our society might not be ready to accept it. How accepted is your effective work in our society, Chris?
There are smaller employment agencies that love to hear from me. Mm-hmm. But some of these young men and women I've never had a resume. I mean, we're talking about just the basics of getting a little business life going for them, so they can go. And a lot of them can't type. I'm teaching typing. I mean, that's one thing I think. If anyone's listening that's in the Bureau of Prisons, especially youth, I've written to all of them. If you could just get these young men and women to be able to type 50 words a minute, would help me so much. Because when I'm working on, I have a curriculum for children in prison to get them to the point that I'd like them to be when they get out, to work with me further. I'm getting young men and women that are, I'm sure, Al, you've taught many types of classes. I have to do an intake to see where these different people are and even segment the group to start to train them. There's a few things that are happening that are a disgrace. Number one, in the world, the United States is about 17th in education. In inner city, we're probably 200th. So that, to me, is something. It's a total failure and almost on purpose by the government. The government
Whoa there. Hey, a CPA said that. Now, we're not going to really go in that. I don't want to make an issue of it, but I certainly am on board with that. You said almost on purpose. A lot of my listeners would say, well, that's almost correct, because they're thinking it's more than just almost on purpose. Again, we'll leave that one alone. And
okay,
you've explained that the smaller agencies sometimes will honor your work, and sometimes with the larger agencies it's a lot more difficult. And of course, we know that the larger agencies have more effectiveness in placing their clientele. So it becomes cyclical, people. We know that you get in trouble, and it's hard to get out of trouble, even when you served your time. Let's get into the youth here, at-risk youth. Now, I'll preface it by saying a lot of the at-risk youth are going to be the products, the children products, of some of the spouses and mothers and fathers that you're dealing with from the get-go. People who are having some problems within their family situation and their family financial situations. So now that becomes cyclical, too. Now, you didn't see the original mother and father because that preceded your involvement with them. But you see the products of that, the youth who now are at risk. They're at risk because of the things that you talked about earlier. How do you get them out of that at-risk situation when you weren't there to counsel their mother and father to begin with, Chris?
The first and most important thing is to educate them about options. Remember, let's say you have a 15-year-old girl who's inner city that is at risk. So she's only seeing what's going on around her. She's only seeing what influences around her. She's seeing what the society's doing around her. So those are the only options that she might see, just to exist within her society, if you will. So the first thing to do is to educate them about options, just about options as a parent would. So talk about schooling, the importance of schooling, talk about college, talk about the future and what their possibilities are. Remember, a lot of these children have never been given any possibility other than you just have to subsist and exist every day and try to get by. So they aren't thinking about tomorrow.
Yeah.
So talking to them about what their options are, and show them examples and show them case studies, talk about programs, and give them an outlet to discuss things to someone who knows, which is what I do. That's really is communication, again, comes down to your basic tenet, which is, all right, so these children don't have someone to discuss their dreams that really might go outside of what their society is telling them okay. So remember, though, these children are smart. They think about things. So what the mentoring groups do for children, it gives them a venue with someone they can discuss their dreams where they're not going to be ridiculed. There are a lot of inner city areas where going to college is scoffed at, or not being in a gang is a negative thing.
Yeah.
And so what we need to do, what I do, is give these children who want to possibly make a change or see something different a place where they can come to trust that there is another option, and how do I get there? So you have to provide a strong influence opposite of what their daily society is showing them. That's what I try to do in a very forceful way. If you were to see me in action, that's what these children need. That's what a parent would do, right? That's what parents are supposed to do. Oh, society says to do this. Oh, but in our home, I'm teaching you how to be and how to act. A lot of times, I'm just substituting for the strong parental, loving person. And just like in my book, I want to be the masculine but non-judgmental sanctuary for them. That's what these children need. That's my basic philosophy as parenting and mentoring.
Absolutely. And, I'm going to chip in something here at this point. People, again, this goes out to you, my listening audience. What we're talking about right now is not ultimate problem solving. We're not saying that we have all the answers, and I'm saying we right now, people of distinction, as a show, as an institution, as a business direction, because people of distinction infers not only my radio show, but also my People of Distinction Humanitarian Awards in New York City. It talks about my People of Distinction radio network and clients that I work with, and the work that I do as a speaker, and Chris's great work, too, as a guest on my show. All of this you put together, and it's on the way to helping us as a human family. But we need your help as well to make it work, because the work that People of Distinction is doing, that Chris is doing with Foxhole Father, is integrally involved in you and your responsiveness to some of the situations in our world, and particularly in this country, that have caused People of Distinction and Chris Whalen's Foxhole Father to be instituted at all. These are humanitarian organizations. They're organizations to edify, to uplift, to teach. And you, as our human family, need to be in the position of actually consuming the teaching here, using it in your everyday life, and also fearlessly, courageously challenging some of the systems in our world and in this country that would go against your being able to institute what we're teaching, what we're offering in uplifting measures in your life. If there are institutions that say, oh, yeah, boy, this is great, you're learning and you're on your way up and, you have this positive state of mind and, man, you're ready to go, and sister, you're ready to go too, but we're not going to let you. It's your responsibility to now do something about these institutions. Now, this is straight talk, and Chris has been talking straight too, all throughout the show, that these things exist, and sometimes it's not up to his expertise and your willingness to overcome the situations that you're in. It's also the society's willingness to let you. So this I got to throw out there on People of Distinction with Al Cole. We've got a couple of minutes left in this great show, Chris. I'm enjoying it, learning from it, and I know that my listeners are too. And they can go to foxholefather.com to support your work, learn more, and be supported by your work. In the final couple of minutes, I want to play some possibility thinking roles here. If everybody were, all of a sudden, to get into your mindset, our societal institutions, everything, they were in the Chris Whalen mindset, the Foxhole Father mindset of elevating our families in financial matters, elevating our former prisoners when they re-enter society, elevating our youth, and especially the at-risk youth, and instituting them into our wonderful human society here. What kind of world could we have? How would that essentially change the way that we do business, our institutions, and our essential relationships with each other if we really caught on all of a sudden an epiphany? Whoa, yeah, this is the way it should be. How would that change things, Chris?
Mainly, a lot of people are very distrusting of others. They have some prejudices. They're very cynical about people. This happened, in the past 40 or 50 years. So the main thing is to self-observe every day and realize that other human beings that are in front of them, regardless of their race or color or circumstance, are really good people just like us who are doing the very best they can. And as part of my Christian background, we should be doing everything we can to help others, and we need to erase some of our not just, I don't want to use the word prejudice because that's been a bastardized term too. We need to eliminate any idea we have about this person and we don't know them. So that's what I do every day. I assume that everyone is doing the best they can, no matter what their circumstance, and that they've had a much harder day than me. I was raised that way. So if everyone would take down this shield they have up of not just hatred, but distrust and prejudice is really the word, just to get rid of that, really self-observe every day. That's what I tell everyone to do that I meet. Really see what you're thinking, evaluate what you're thinking, remove your learned and socialized emotional filters from your view of the world. That's the one thing we could all do, and see everyone as a mirror. It's yourself, no matter who it is. That's what I do. Everyone is a person just like you, and how would you want them to view you? Everyone's had a hard time. There's no greater feeling I have in my life than when I can help someone with my skill set and show them love when they've had a hard time. So that's what the Chris Whalen world would be, is a world where everyone wakes up and their preconceived notions of persons and situations are gone, and they give someone the benefit of the doubt to try to love them and get to know them without any preconceived notion.
Isn't that marvelous? That is marvelous, Chris. And I'm just going to underscore something that you said. You, for the first time in the show, said your activity is really motivated by your Christian belief, your spiritual belief. That is so important, people. I want to underscore this. What we're ultimately talking about here is a spiritual direction to our society. We're talking about having some sort of faith buttressing to some of our institutions. We're talking about really caring about the heart and soul content of human beings. Now, once you start talking that way, that is spiritual talk, people. And I know in the work that I do with all of my People of Distinction conglomerate, my show, my network, work with my clients, the People of Distinction Humanitarian Awards, I will define it as humanitarian because it's the easiest way to get the message out there, but I know ultimately what I'm doing is spiritual work. And that's so important. Don't shrink from it, people. It's a spiritual work that we want to accomplish in the end. And the best way to do that is to understand who we are on the inside and how we were made and what the intentions were, and that we are brothers and sisters in the end, that we are part of a human family. And now when we understand that, we can go to that highest source and we can say, thank you for creating me to begin with. Thank you that I'm alive at all. That's the biggest blessing of all, people, to be alive at all. I'm going to give you the final word here. Chris, am I making sense? Am I on the right track here, brother?
You are on the right track and the right station, Al Cole. I'll tell you that. I agree that people have neglected the spiritual component to themselves for decades now. and it's something that needs to be nourished just as our physical bodies do. And, you know, we need soul care and nurturing. And I want to say that extending yourself to help someone else at need, that one simple act, even helping someone up the steps even, has an exponential ripple positive effect in this world where we're just inundated with negative images. So I want everyone to know that my work has, I know, helped people and helped their children exponentially, and there's nothing better. The money I could make has nothing to do with it. And people are not taught, unfortunately, institutionalized religions are marginalized. They're made fun of by certain groups. It's terrible. That everyone, whether you're in a specific church or congregation or just like to pray or meditate, that I urge everyone now to really try to get a handle on their spiritual life and understand that if that's neglected, it's almost as bad as your physical or mental health being neglected. And it's okay to say that you have a soul. It's okay to say that you're a loving Christian-type person. People might say, oh, who would believe that Christ existed? I say, well, of course that's faith, but he had a lot of good ideas. Let's try to use them. That's my thought about it.
There we go. What a great cap-off to a wonderful show here with Chris Whalen, heads up Foxhole Father. He's been my special guest on People of Distinction with Al Cole. And one more time, I want you to run to this website, foxholefather.com, www.foxholefather.com. And, really support Chris's great work because he's supporting you. Thank you, Chris, for being my special guest here today on People of Distinction with Al Cole. I will invite you back for updates on all of the great work. This has really been a pleasure and an honor to have you on my show today. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Al, so much.
It's author, musician, singer Al Cole, from a CBS radio background, now to host of the syndicated talk show People of Distinction, a show that brings to light a stunning new concept, celebrity inspirational interviews, giving high-profile guests the chance to talk not only about what everybody knows about them, their great professional achievements, but also the secrets that very few know about them, their real heart and soul human values, the values that link them closely to the core of our human family. Because celebrities are human beings, people, and we are all people of distinction. And when given the chance, we will all speak openly about the very reason for our birth, the energy and dedication of what we call love. Hey, I'm also the author of the exciting new book, The Spirit of Romance. Hey, at last a book that defines romance as the loving relationship that we all enter into with life itself. Whoa there, men-women relationships in the backdrop of beautiful universal energy too. Happy to say that my book, The Spirit of Romance, is now available on Amazon and Kindle, and I'd like to thank all of my alcoholics who have bought it and also benefited from it too. That's The Spirit of Romance by Al Cole, now available on Amazon and Kindle. Thousands and thousands of women, guys too, listen to my talk shows, People of Distinction, every week, and they contact me with their questions, reflections, and comments at alcoholic@gmail.com. You heard me right there. That's alcoholic@gmail.com. So until next time, people, wish you peace, awareness, romance, and mostly love.